Welcome, Jackets fans. Welcome to Boom and Gloom, just your everyday fan podcast where I talk about the boom, the good, and the gloom, the bad, of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I'm Anthony, or as you might know me on social media, Whaler Jacket. I am North America's longest suffering hockey fan. The Jackets gave us a brief respite from the suffering with a 3-game winning streak recently, but that of course came to an abrupt, thunderous end with a loss to the Devils the other night. They of course blew another third period lead in the process. I watched the first 2 periods, then I left for a New Year's Eve party. So I didn't even see the meltdown, but I do know that they gave up 3 goals in less than 2 minutes. Just classic Blue Jackets disappointment. I'll get more into that in a bit, but I'm just glad to be back here. I took a bit of an extended break with the holidays, and I have a ton to talk about today, so let's get right into it. Actually, let me just say this. If you're going to listen to one thing from this podcast episode today, skip to the end, because I have one big thought, one big picture item that kind of ties everything else I talk about on today's show together. A kind of a State of the Jackets address. So that'll be after I talk about a bunch of other Jackets-related news. As it seems to be the case every time I do one of these episodes, there were some roster moves since I last did an episode. Happens every time. I do a podcast episode, and then the next day, there's some big news in CBJ land, and I have to wait to discuss it on here. So let's backtrack a bit. The Jackets acquired Mason Marchment from the Seattle Kraken. Still the dumbest name in the league, but that's another topic for another day. At first, I was not pleased that the Jackets gave up a second-round pick, but my feelings changed on that. More on that shortly. Marchment has been a good pickup in my opinion. He has looked good, I think, playing on the top line with Marchenko and Fantilli, and he has points in all 4 games since he has been with the team. Or maybe it's 5 games, I can't remember, but he has points every game. But I want to share with you my bold prediction. And this comes from many, many years of suffering as a fan and seeing bad decision after bad decision. My bold prediction: Marchment is going to continue to produce. And that is going to convince Don Waddell to sign him to a big contract. After that, once he is signed that big contract, his production is going to fall off a cliff in typical Blue Jackets fashion. And his contract will end up looking terrible. Now, obviously, I hope I'm wrong, but this team has done almost nothing but let me down since they came into existence. So I'm just bracing myself for what seems to be the inevitable. In the meantime, it got me thinking. Marchment was not performing well for the Kraken. He comes to Columbus, and he starts putting up basically a point a game. So I was thinking, what other players in Blue Jackets history have been traded to the Jackets and then performed better than their previous team? Sam Gagner and Nick Foligno came to my mind almost immediately. But are there others? Who am I forgetting? Please feel free to let me know. I always give my contact information at the end of every episode. So who am I forgetting? Who else has come to the Jackets and has thrived? Like, has been better with the Jackets than their previous team? Like, the Jackets got lucky, got more talent than they thought they were getting. I'd be very curious to know if I'm missing anybody else. Anyway, back to Marchment. I like what he brings to the team. He's big, he's physical, and dare I say, he's a bit dirty. Now take that how you want, but I like the fact that the Jackets have another player with a mean streak. Someone who can play physically and get under the skin of opponents. It seems like all good teams have that. Florida Panthers, you got Brad Marchand, you have Kachuk, forget how you say his name properly. So all good teams have that. I mean, Washington has Tom Wilson. So maybe this is one of the pieces to the puzzle. But it's a double-edged sword because with that style of play comes what Kraken fans mentioned about him. And that is he takes a lot of penalties. Sometimes a lot of stupid penalties. Penalties at very bad times. And we've already seen that to some degree so far. But I think overall, the positives outweigh the negatives here, at least so far. And I'm glad that Marchment is in the fold. That brings me to the other big trade the Jackets made. And that, of course, is Yegor Chinakhov was finally traded. He was traded to the Pittsburgh Penguins for 2 draft picks and Danton, not really sure how to say his last name, Heinen, not sure. My knee jerk to this trade was, what the heck is Don Waddell doing? Trading in division to the rival Penguins? There is no doubt in my mind that Chinny is going to haunt the Jackets for years. With guys like Crosby and Malkin there to help him, the dude may just very well develop into a stud. A stud that is going to make the Jackets and their fans irate for years. But the cold hard truth, guys, is that Chinakhov needed to go. It wasn't working out here, and the Jackets had to get something for him. I have to believe, I have to have faith that Don Waddell did everything he could to get the best deal possible, and that this was the best he can do. Division rivals, yes, but perhaps this was the best return the Jackets could get under the circumstances. So, again, knee jerk, I was unhappy. Of all teams, the Penguins, a team in the Jackets division, so Chinny can light the lamp every time we play them. But then I thought of it a different way, and it makes the trade seem so much better. Okay, so maybe you can think about this the same way. The trade is really Mason Marchment and a couple of draft picks for Yegor Chinakhov, a couple of better draft picks, and a depth player. So thinking about it that way makes me feel a lot better. The thing is, were these trades part of a plan to get the Jackets over the hump and into the playoffs this season? That's kind of my big thought that I will come back to you towards the end of this episode. But to finish up this segment, I'm actually happy for Chinakhov. It obviously wasn't going to work out. For whatever reason, okay? Not the correct skill set for this team, not the right fit for the coach, not the right fit for the locker room, whatever it was. I don't know. I don't know what it was truly, and it doesn't matter. He needed to move on, and Don Waddell got the job done. He was a former first-round pick. Yeah, I kind of wish we got one back in return, but considering his body of work in the NHL so far, that wasn't going to happen. We were not going to get a first-round pick in return. it was a stretch for Jarmo Kekalainen to take him in the first round to begin with. And, of course, it didn't pan out. So what we do get back, though, is the St. Louis Blues second-round pick. So that will actually end up being a high second-round pick if the Blues season continues to trend as it currently is trending. And the Jackets are in desperate need of prospects. And that is actually my next segment here. Someone brought to my attention on social media that the Blue Jackets do not have any prospects playing in the World Junior Championships this season. I thought that was a very astute and alarming observation. As bad as the Jackets have been since last making the playoffs, 5 years ago, their cupboard should be stocked with high-end prospects. And frankly, it is not. We should have several players in that tournament, several high-end prospects who are on a clear path to the NHL. Instead, we have no one. Who is the Blue Jackets' top prospect right now? Like if you were asked that, who would you say is the Blue Jackets' top prospect? If you say Caden Lindstrom, here's my argument for that. Last I checked, he had 3 points this season at Michigan State. 3 points in college. He was the 4th overall pick in his draft. The 3rd pick in that same draft, Beckett Seneke, he has 30 points this season in the NHL, not college, NHL. Ivan Demidov, he was the 5th overall pick. He has 35 points this season in the NHL. Let me say this again. Caden Lindstrom has 3 points in college. He is not even close to being even the top player on his team. We can give him a pass, maybe, because of his injuries. All right, he took an entire year off from playing hockey. So maybe, just maybe, this is a year to shake off the rust and get back into playing shape. Or maybe, just maybe, he is a huge, monumental bust. I hear the argument about the injuries. Okay, I also hear the argument that different players take different amounts of time to develop. I get that, all right? I understand that. But I also understand that the Jackets have been notorious for making bad drafting decisions. It is so hard to watch teams like Anaheim and San Jose and Montreal, whose high draft picks seem to be starting to flourish in the NHL. We have Adam Fantilli and Denton Mateychuk, who are both doing pretty well, but not as well as Celebrini or Bedard or Carlson or Hudson or Demidov or even, what's his name, Slafkovsky with Montreal. It is very, very frustrating. Kent Johnson has fallen faster than I think I have ever seen a player fall. What happened to him? I'm not saying he needed to take another step forward this year. But I don't think it was too much to expect for him to play at about the same level as last year. Maybe take a small step back. Instead, he has taken 20 giant leaps backwards. It is just crazy and downright baffling to see. And then look at Cleveland, all right? The Jackets AHL affiliate in Cleveland. Who are the Jackets' big-name prospects there who are setting the league on fire, just waiting to make the leap to the NHL, just hoping for that call-up? I don't see any. At least not yet. Pinelli, Del Bel Blues, while they're solid, they don't strike me as game-changing superstars. Just your average middle six player, both of them. Now, I could be wrong. That could change. But as of now, visually, that's what I see. Who's the next big name defenseman? I don't see him on that Monsters roster either. So I have to say, I'm a bit worried. And that's also something I'm going to tie in with my final thought to today's episode. Oh, and one more thing, okay? I've read another interesting opinion on this. It has been suggested that the Jackets' lack of prospects can be at least partially tied to the team's 2 player deaths. That has forced the team to make roster decisions they, under other circumstances, would not have had to make. It has created a snowball effect. Imagine this team right now with Johnny Gaudreau, a potent, skilled offensive superstar. It would have been glorious. With Matisse Kivlenieks, maybe the Jackets make different decisions in goal. Maybe Elvis is no longer with the team. Maybe they don't use certain draft picks on goaltenders. Instead, stocking their prospect pool with more forwards or defensemen. You just don't know. The Jackets were dealt a very bad hand, and it just sucks because they have been through enough. They've obviously not had success, and then on top of that, you throw in the deaths of 2 players. It sucks, but it's the reality the team and we fans have to deal with. And again, that's part of this big picture thing that I will address later. But the next thing I want to address is injuries. My goodness, lots to talk about here. I would like to list each player currently injured and discuss the ramifications. I want to discuss what it means to the team. So let's start with Zach Werenski. First, I want to talk about the play on which he was injured, because it still bothers me. Earlier in that same game, a Ducks player gets hit with a puck in his side and immediately drops to the ice. Play is blown dead immediately, right away. Whistle blows. Zach Werenski goes down and play continues. Zach is crawling to the bench, getting help from Elvis, and play continues. Then someone, I think Damon Severson, extends his stick to help and pulls him to the bench. Then the play is finally whistled down, and the Jackets are given a too many men on the ice penalty. What the heck is that all about? I guess if you follow the letter of the law, it is a penalty. But I contend the play should have been stopped, especially since the Jackets did have possession at one point. Now, it could have been worse. The injury was not as severe as it looked. Zach is out for the next, or was out for the next several games. And what happened? The Jackets started winning. I was really impressed with how the team responded. I actually expected them to crumble and extend their losing streak. Instead, they went on a 3-game winning streak, and I thought maybe a little adversity like this is what the team needed. I would never wish an injury upon any Jacket, but maybe this was the kick in the pants the Jackets needed for people to step up. Denton Mateychuk especially has stood out to me. He seems to have really elevated his game since Zach went down. And he seems to have earned Coach Evason's trust because his minutes have skyrocketed. And I have to say, if you've listened to this podcast before, you'll know that I am not the world's biggest Damon Severson fan. But even he kind of stepped things up a little bit. He's been not playing badly at all. Still hoping Zach returns soon, but at least the Jackets have shown some resilience in his absence. That was a very nice thing to see. Next injury, Isaac Lundestrom. Again, I would never wish injury on any Jackets player, but from a team perspective, I have to admit I was not upset at all about this injury. If I look at the Jackets' regular starting roster at forward, he is the player I am least happy about being there. He's done fine, okay? It's not like he is making glaring errors every single night that is costing the team victories and points in the standings. But what bothers me most is that the Jackets chose to sign him instead of re-signing Sean Kuraly or Justin Danforth. Both players, in my opinion, would be a better choice for our fourth line center. I am genuinely curious about this. Does anyone see Isaac Lundestrom as an upgrade to what we had in Kuraly or Danforth? Because I certainly do not. I would have rather had either of those two back as our fourth line center compared to Lundestrom. So he is out for a few weeks, and I think what should happen is that Cole Sillinger should slot into the fourth line center position once Sean Monahan returns. And he's the next person I want to talk about. Monty has missed the last 2 games with an undisclosed injury. And let's be honest here, he has been a shell of himself this year. He is a shell of last year's Sean Monahan. He, along with Kent Johnson, have been the main reasons why the Jackets aren't putting up better offense, in my opinion, of course. If he and KJ were scoring at a similar pace as last year, I bet the Jackets would have at least 3 or 4 more wins. Because like last season, a high offensive output would offset the deficiencies the Jackets have at defense and goaltender. But to me, it has been obvious that Monty has been fighting through something. I would personally rather him sit out for a while and get fully healed than come back to the team not at 100%. Regardless, let's see if some other players step up. Give them a chance for minutes and go from there. Still no word on Eric Goodbranson, still out with a concussion. My thought on that is that it must have been pretty bad. And I'm beginning to fear that it might even be career-threatening at this point. I've grown to really like Gutty, so I hope we see him healthy soon. But my hopes right now are not high. Miles Wood. Looks like he is going to be out for a while. The way he hit the boards, man, that was scary looking. It looked like his body got twisted like a pretzel. You never want to see things like that. Miles Wood plays with reckless abandon. And we were kind of told when he was acquired that he was injured a lot because of that. However, I don't attribute this injury to his style of play. He simply went into the boards awkwardly. It could have happened to any player. Just bad luck on this one. The Jackets are unfortunately losing a lot of speed and physicality with his absence from the lineup. And I just want to say I hope he makes a speedy recovery. And lastly, Brendan Smith. He's also going to be out a while, apparently. Now, is this a massive loss for this team? Honestly, no, not really. But Smith has been decent, okay? He's been fairly solid. But there are two silver linings here to this injury. One, this may open the door for a young defenseman like Kuhlmans or Svozil to step in and get some NHL ice time, get some experience. The Jackets called up Dyson Mayo, obviously, but considering Smith is going to be out a while, maybe they'll give a young guy a chance at some point as well. The second silver lining: NHL players are human beings. They have families. They have people they love in their lives. Brendan Smith has kids. And I'm not sure if you know the story here, but Brendan Smith bet on himself making the Blue Jackets roster. He moved his family to Columbus. He enrolled his kids in Columbus area schools. So he was getting up at the crack of dawn every morning, driving to Cleveland to practice with the Monsters. Then driving home each evening. I mean, that's at least 4 hours of driving right there. And probably not a whole lot of time in the evenings spent with his wife and kids. So the silver lining is that at least for the duration of the injury, he will not be sent back to Cleveland. He can spend a lot of time with his family without fear of being sent down. So I like that for him. Not, again, I don't wish injuries on anybody. I'm not happy that I got injured, but considering the circumstances, I'm at least happy that he'll get to spend some more quality time with his family. All right, last topic before I get to my big picture discussion. Kirill Marchenko and Adam Fantilli. They are arguably the Blue Jackets' two best forwards. But in order for this team to take another step forward, they both have to start being more consistent. Especially Marchenko. My goodness, I can't remember another player as streaky as he is. He'll erupt for goals in 3 or 4 straight games, sometimes even multiple goals in a game. Then he'll just disappear for 10 to 15 games. Adam Fantilli, I don't see as being quite as streaky as Marchenko, but he does seem to go through some streaks. And I guess you could argue that all players have good and bad stretches. Yeah, I understand that argument. But the superstars, those elite talents that we hope Marchenko and Fantilli will be, they don't have quite these long scoreless droughts. I've not done the research, but I can almost guarantee you will not find that McDavid or McKinnon have gone 10 consecutive games or so without scoring. The top players, the elite players in the NHL, are consistent. They'll have some bad streaks here and there, but never very long, and during which they still elevate their line mates via other means, like with assists. Marchenko and Fantilli, they need to be more consistent scorers. Perhaps that will come with more time and experience, but man, could this team use some elite scoring, consistent elite scoring right now. All right, now for my big picture topic. Tying it all together right now. Okay, here we go. I think that it's time that we call this season for what it is. This is not a Stanley Cup contending team. If this team is even a playoff team, then they are a borderline playoff team. I do not see them doing much in the playoffs if they make it as currently constructed. I have accepted that at this point. I look back at what Don Waddell did this past summer, which wasn't much, and I was originally annoyed. But here's how I've come to look at it. He perhaps wanted to see if last season's team was as good as their record indicated. And if they were, he wanted to see if his players would take the next step and get them to the next level. They did not. So my hypothesis is that now he knows, now Don Waddell knows there is a lot of work to still do, and he's going to start putting his stamp on this team moving forward. The Mason Marchment trade was a final test. Could he put another top 6 player into the lineup and save the season? I guess it's still possible, but I don't see it. I don't see this team as making any noise in the playoffs if they were to miraculously get there. And yes, people will say that they are on the same pace as last year's team at the same time. But the difference is the Eastern Conference has only gotten stronger and tighter. I mean, just look at those standings. They have to jump over more teams, stronger teams, than last season. Surely, Waddell must recognize this. So if we don't see a massive winning streak like the Sabres are involved in right now, I think Waddell makes a lot of changes, starting at the trade deadline. But we as fans, we have to accept the team for what it is at this point. And that is a team that's not a playoff team. I'm sorry. And if we are a playoff team, we are certainly not ready to actually compete for a Stanley Cup. And trust me, guys, I hate that as much as you do. Probably more, as I have suffered way longer than any of you. But my experience as a fan of 2 very bad franchises allows me to see things for what they are. I'm a realist. And realistically, this team has little to no chance at making any noise in the playoffs, even if they were to get there. Now, you might argue that if we can just get there, you never know what's going to happen. Or if we could just get there, the experience alone will be beneficial enough to help our young team have success moving forward, like to help them get to that next level. I admit that is a school of thought that is possible, but I personally don't buy into that. Therefore, here's what needs to happen. As a team, the Jackets front office has to start making some decisions. Who to keep and who to move going forward. This includes the coaching staff as well. On my last episode, I mentioned how I would like to see a new defensive coach. Move out some players, all right? Is this just a long slump for Kent Johnson? Or was last year just an anomaly? And if he's not going to fit here, trade him for assets. Boone Jenner is a fan favorite, sure. But he would also be a coveted piece for a playoff team at the deadline. Move him for assets. Charlie Coyle has been awesome. So pleasantly surprised with him. But you know what? Another team might give you some really high assets, maybe even a first-round pick for him. You can always sign these players back over the summer if you really want them. But recognize where this team is. We desperately need some high draft picks right now. Talk to Provorov. Talk to Severson. Ask them. Ask them about their willingness to waive their no trade clauses. Maybe they'd be willing to waive them if it meant leaving this crap show that they've been a part of and actually going to a playoff team with a chance to win it all. But the bottom line is, as fans, we have to ask ourselves this question. Are we happy just making the playoffs this season? If so, by all means, keep your hopes alive. There is still a chance, after all, that the Jackets will still make the playoffs this year. But let's be real. They are not going to do much damage if they get there. First round exit? Probably. Maybe second round. But what I think we need to do is not be happy just making the playoffs. That should not be our goal, to just make the playoffs. We need to want and expect more than that. And if you subscribe to that line of thinking, like I have, then you need to accept that we should not be thinking playoffs this season. We should continue to cheer for our team and hope they win. But when they lose, we should not be as upset. Because ultimately, assuming again that we are not making the playoffs, every loss actually helps us in the long run. And trust me, guys, okay, I am sick and tired of the whole wait for next year line of thinking. I'm tired of looking forward to next year. But if we don't have the right cards, we don't have the right cards. And I still don't think we have the right cards, unfortunately. No help is coming. We don't have an up-and-coming superstar waiting in Cleveland. We don't have that ultimate shutdown defender playing for the Monsters either. David Jiricek should have been that guy. But he wasn't. Another whiff by the Blue Jackets drafting team. Excuse me. So let's stock our cupboard. Let's get a high draft pick that doesn't have severe back issues. Let's look at a trade or two to bring in some high-end talent. Supposedly, I haven't looked into it, but the free agent market is not impressive after this season. But maybe there's someone who can be brought in to help next year. And yeah, I know. We seem to say this sort of thing every season. But if we are doing a reality check, the reality is that we are not going far this year. And in the past, we can at least say, well, we're not making the playoffs this year, but we have some up and coming talent that is going to be injected into our lineup really soon. Well, we don't have that anymore. We don't have another Fantilli to pin hopes on, or a Kent Johnson, or a Yegor Chinakhov, or a David Jiricek, or a Denton Matejchuk. Those were all our future. Those were all the guys that we said, oh, just wait till they get onto our team. Well, now they are on our team, or they've already been traded. I am very concerned that our current roster, is not going to get us where we want to be, and we have no one waiting in the wings to help elevate us to the next level. So, my thought is, let's let our current roster develop more, and in the meantime, let's stock our cupboard with some new high-end talent. Is it what I want to think right now? Is this where I wanted my favorite hockey team to be after 25 years? Heck no. I hate it. But as I mentioned before, we've had some bad luck. Okay? In addition to the poor drafting, in addition to some questionable trades, we have had some bad luck. The deaths of 2 players, one of which was an elite NHL talent. That has set us back. We have had high draft picks like David Jiricek and, seemingly so, Caden Lindstrom not work out. So at this point, we need to temper our expectations for the current team and be realistic about what needs to happen moving forward for us to finally get out of this constant cycle of suckiness or constant cycle of mediocrity. I know this sounds like I'm giving up on the season in early January, and well, I kind of am. I will be ecstatic if I am wrong and this team goes on a tear and makes the playoffs. But again, if that happens, I don't see them going far. Would that be enough to propel them forward even more next season with the experience that they earn? Maybe. But I don't think so. And if I'm right, then we are right back where we started. We need help to be successful moving forward. So for the rest of this season, I will celebrate every Blue Jackets victory. Now, I will not celebrate losses, but I will accept them as a necessary piece to getting this team to that sustained success level. I remember 2 years ago, the season before last, I predicted the Jackets would be ready to compete in the playoffs this year, 2026. I unfortunately have to admit that I think I was wrong. And again, things have happened. Things changed, especially with Johnny Gaudreau. Now I'm looking at 2028. I think that with some changes and experience, the Jackets could make the playoffs next season. Absolutely possible. But I think with some changes in experience, it is more realistic to think that a season where the Jackets actually compete as a team that can go far in the playoffs, that won't happen until at least the 27-28 season. I'm sorry to be a downer, but like I said, I am a realist. Nothing about the team this year tells me that they are built to turn things around, make the playoffs, and go far. Don't agree with me? That's fine. I admire your optimism, and I would love for you to convince me. But as of right now, I'm very pessimistic about how this year is going to finish, and unless changes happen, I'm pessimistic about this team after this season. You're always welcome to get in touch with me. Talk to me about this. Tell me what you think. You can find me on Blue Sky and Instagram at WhalerJacket. That is my handle. Or email me, whalerjacket@gmail.com. That's all I have for you today. Happy New Year, everybody. Let's hope 2026 is a new beginning for the Jackets, where we start seeing more boom and less gloom. Bye for now. Go Jackets.